Minogazep, Niashingaming Jonjaba, Makos Indigenous Makwadodem. I said good morning in our language of Ojibwe to you, and said my name of Little Bear and my clan again. It's been a great privilege and honor to be over here, to share with everyone that's here, and I want to give thanks to all of creation, and recognize that we are in your land and your territories. It's a great honor and respect to be here. This morning, we wanted to share a documentary with everybody of what we've been doing at home, and the documentary is called Together with Gigoyuk, and it's in collaboration and partnership with our government agencies at home of Parks Canada and the Ministry of Natural Resources. It's about 30 minutes long. I figured you'd rather not listen to me talk and preach, because I'm not a preacher and I don't claim to be, and I don't want to be. So if they can start the video for us, because I'm not technical in that sense, and I'll let you guys enjoy the video, and then if afterwards I might call up for Ryan and Alex to come up and answer any questions that may be had. Miigwech.
We have truffles growing here, truffle trees, and it is ideal not to have heavy machinery running on your delicate root structures. These mowers are very small and light, so because they can maneuver so close to the tree, we will no longer be spraying, which is fantastic. So we will have an organic premium product. Before this,
the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, or Son, and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, more commonly known as the MNRF, have a long history that was characterized by conflict and disagreement regarding issues related to fisheries in Lake Huron. The relationship between MNRF and Son, located on the shores of Lake Huron, can generally be categorized into 3 time periods. 1. Fisheries-related conflict pre-2000. 2. The transition to joint fishery governance from 2000 to 2018. And lastly, the 3rd period, which is today, where Son, the MNRF, and Parks Canada are jointly doing research using a new method of a tuck-to-muck, or two-eyed seeing. Mi'kmaq elder Albert Marshall describes two-eyed seeing as learning to see from one eye with the strengths of Indigenous knowledges and ways of knowing, and from the other eye with the strengths of mainstream knowledges and ways of knowing, and to use both these eyes together for the benefit of all.
My name's Ryan Lauzon. I'm the Fisheries Assessment Biologist for the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. I am the lead for the Chippewas of Nawash side of the Together with Gigoyuk project. The advantage to using two-eyed seeing, which includes not only Western science, but also Saugeen Ojibwe Nation knowledge, is that it really provides a much broader and holistic picture about what is going on in the lake and what's going on within the fisheries and the fish, than we would get from just using one of these knowledge systems on its own.
My name is Kevin Harper. I'm an ecologist with Parks Canada at Bruce Fadland 5, and I'm part of the Parks Canada team on the Together with Gigoyak project. The Together with Gigoyak project, has multiple different, components to it, and really it's looking at the different stages of lake whitefish throughout its life cycle. So we have work that's going on in the, the early life history, looking at the larval, both the larval numbers out there as well as, the plankton, the food availability for them, trying to understand what's going on at that stage. Later on we get into the index netting. That's looking a bit more at the more mature fish, looking at how many are out there, what kind of body condition they're in. You can also look at their diet. You get to the tagging work, and again that's looking at more of the adult fish and how they're moving about the lake, and what these different populations are doing, or what is there a difference between what the males are doing versus females. And then the next part we hope to get into some shoal assessment. So it's getting to look at the eggs, how they're surviving, how they're how these fish are using this habitat. So it kind of covers a full range of the life cycle. So at the base of this project, or the foundation, we're using this two-eyed seeing approach. The Saugee Ojibwe Nation has been developing a relationship with the lands and waters, plants and animals since time immemorial. Their livelihoods and lives dependent on that relationship, so there's a lot of knowledge there that can not only help guide the questions we should be asking, and how to, but also how to answer those questions, as well as how to interpret some of the data we're collecting through this project. Bringing that with the Western science approach just provides a more holistic view of, or better understanding of what we're seeing in the lake.
Local First Nations artist Charmaine Jenner from Neoshingaming had been chosen to create the logo for this collaborative project together with Gigoyak. The following is a description of the symbolism and meaning by the artist.
There are three faces in the center of the logo. The one to the right represents the Western view. The other to the left represents the First Nation view. The middle face brings both sides together, representing the bringing together of our good minds. The lines across the eyes are as follows. The green represents the land, and the blue represents all of the waters, springs, rivers, lakes, and streams in the Lauzon territory. The placement across the eyes is to highlight sight, clarity, and a sacred vision of a sustainable future for generations to come. There are 7 eagle feathers on top of the 3 faces in the logo that represent the 7 grandfather teachings. Love, humility, respect, honesty, truth, courage, and wisdom. These 7 grandfather teachings are there to guide us and are a reflection of the past, and is still in practice today in our First Nations culture. The eagle feathers are given as an honor in recognition to individuals for their work and life accomplishments. It was common for those in positions of leadership to have 1 or more eagle feathers. Like the eagle feather, the quill of the feather being straight reminds us to walk that straight path to the good road, to speak the truth, to be the truth, and to have love for the people and for their community, to care about the people, about the land, the water, and our way of life, to protect our way of life, and to be humble and to have humility as a leader, because you speak for the people. The eagles in the background represent learning from the past of our ancestors. As one eagle is looking in the direction towards the past, the other eagle is looking in the direction towards the future. They represent having a vision for the people, for what is needed in the future, and in terms of sustainability. One of the teachings the elders have shared with me is that we must think of the 7 generations ahead that will be coming, and how our decisions today will affect those in the future. The sweetgrass braid symbolizes unity of the people and kindness. as Mother Earth provides for us all of our needs. It is a reminder of our connection to the land. The sweetgrass is picked from Mother Earth and is braided using 3 strands. These 3 strands represent mind, body, and spirit working together. If you have one blade of grass, it is weak and easy to break. However, together many blades of sweetgrass in a braid are difficult to break. There is strength in unity. Below the 3 faces, there is a sunrise with the beams of the sunlight reaching up, touching the faces. This represents a new beginning that is bright. The sun is rising over water, which represents our lakes, and on each side of the water where the sun is rising, there is an area that symbolizes the land and the bluffs in our area. Below are 3 lines representing the Saugeen River. The 2 fish on the bottom symbolize again the Western and First Nations ways of seeing. One fish is drawn in a traditional First Nation style. The other fish is drawn to represent a Western style. The 2 fish are facing each other eye to eye as equals, representing the 2 ways of seeing and understanding. Learning from each other in a good way with respectful intentions and actions, bringing these 2 worldviews together for the good of all. Last but not least, there are the Ojibwe floral designs on each side. We are in Ojibwe San territory, and it is important we are reminded of the beauty of creation that surrounds us every day, and to be thankful and mindful of the gifts creation has to offer and has given to all. Every nation has an inherent responsibility to ensure its continuum. Being united and working together, we can all help one another for the betterment of all. Miigwech. Thank you.
Ani, Sydney Najwan Dijnakaz, Niashingdaming, Donchaba, Chichak and Dodem. So my name is Sydney Najwan, and I live here in Niashingdaming and have my whole life. And my totem is a crane. The totem of the people sort of define who you are or what your purpose is. And so being Chichak or crane is
if you want to reach your financial goals, you just got to stop buying coffee.
Or you could come and talk to BNZ.
is to get all the information, to gather the information and to make better decisions overall. As a nation, the fishing islands were a big part of what held the nation together. Everybody fished before the colonial system started to roll in, and the fish were who we are. You couldn't depict one from the other. It was survival, it was trade and commerce, it was everything. The fish were everything.
My name is Aubrey Erbshot, 18 years old. I'm Indigenous. I'm from Nayashingaming Reserve. My grandpa's a fisherman. I'm pretty sure his brothers are fishermen too. My mom used to tell me stories about how she would go out with him on the boat, and all of my aunts would go with him, and that's how they learned how to fish, gut a fish too. My mom was pretty impressed when I first learned how to gut my fish because she remembers doing it with my papa when she was younger. Elders and community members say that whitefish is our livelihood. It's one of the biggest part of our community. Fishermen are not catching nearly as much as what they used to. Some fishermen don't even go out anymore because they know that they're not going to catch them. Elders, they know these waters really well, so I think it's important for them to share that knowledge with our community, for it to be passed on. It's not something that deserves to be forgotten. The fishermen, like I said, they know the waters, so they know what happens.
It's really important to understand that that the ecological knowledge is the baseline. So everything after that can be measured against what is happening today. And it has changed so drastically in the last 20 years.
To facilitate the sharing of knowledge in this two-eyed seeing process, researchers have begun research projects that bridge both Indigenous ecological knowledge provided by the Saugn community, as well as Western science research perspective done by the MNRF and Parks Canada. Community-based researchers will be conducting Saugn-based ecological knowledge interviews regarding lake whitefish and stocked fish with knowledge keepers, including fish harvesters and elders from the Saugn. These interviews will include a mapping component to identify important information such as spawning shoals, key movement corridors, seasonal occurrences, and culturally significant locations. This knowledge will be analyzed and used to inform other components of the Together with Giiguyuk initiative, Saugn/NDMNRF stocking review, lake whitefish and lake trout interactions, and ongoing nation-to-nation dialogue. The interview process is expected to last up to 2 years, with a high potential for follow-up interviews given the breadth of the 3 research initiatives. One facet of research being conducted is what's called acoustic telemetry. The process is defined by electronic devices called transmitters and receivers.
So acoustic telemetry is essentially some new technology that allows you to put out a listening device called a receiver out into the lake, and then to put transmitters and surgically implant those into whatever fish you're interested in. And release that fish, and then that transmitter is actually sending out a signal that that listening device is essentially attuned to. About once a year you go and you pick up your receiver, your listening device, and you take all of the data off of it, and you basically can see when that fish was swimming by that device and it caught a signal off of the transmitter. So we have those transmitters, or those receivers, sorry, spread throughout Lake Huron and Georgian Bay so that we can get a pretty good picture of where these fish are moving throughout the year.
Erin Dunlop, Indigenous-led. I work with the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, based out of Trent University in Peterborough, Ontario. I'm involved with multiple aspects of the Together with Giiguyuk project, including supervising a master's student, Camilla Ryther, who's doing her master's looking at the spawning behavior and movement patterns of lake whitefish in Lake Huron.
My name is Camilla Ryther, and I'm a Master of Science student here at Trent University, working under Dr. Erin Dunlop of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. And I'm working on an acoustic telemetry project, looking at the fine-scale, sex-specific and dial-specific movements of lake whitefish in the Chippewas and Nawash unceded First Nation territorial waters.
Knowledge of a fish species' movement patterns is fundamental to understanding their biology. Mapping can also help inform decision makers on how to proceed with conservation efforts.
This project is part of my thesis for my Master of Science work. The telemetry work allows us to kind of see where the hot spots of spawning might be, and then potentially later go in and look at if there's eggs present, or maybe did these eggs survive, etc.
So we've learned a number of new things with our project. One of the cool things we found is that in the first year that we did the spawning, we tagged 50 fish at Nawash at a shoal called the Firehouse Shoal. And of those 50 fish, we actually had 28 fish return the following year to spawn again. And this was really exciting for us because it was showing us that our fish were surviving, and not only that, but they were doing well enough to return the following year to spawn again. We've also been learning some interesting patterns and seeing some interesting patterns in the data. For example, with the fish that we tagged, after the spawning season, there was some fish that left the area completely. Then we had a group of fish that hung around in the spawning shoal area for a couple of months before leaving. And then we had some fish that actually stayed around year-round. So they were sort of more resident fish. And this was kind of just showing us that these fish are all doing different things. And what was also interesting was just those fish that left the area either right away or after a few months. Many of those fish came back the following year to spawn again. So this is just giving a sense of some of the things that we're learning, and we hope to be learning more as we get more information from our broader acoustic telemetry array.
Researchers are also analyzing larvae being spawned on the shoals of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay in order to fill gaps in their knowledge of lake whitefish spawning success.
So in the springtime, the water warms up and the ice leaves the lake, and that's when larval lake whitefish begin to hatch. So the eggs have been incubating under the ice on the spawning shoal over the winter months. And in the springtime, when the water warms up, the larval fish hatch out of these eggs and they make their way to the surface. When they're first born, they have a yolk sac, and this provides energy that they need to grow and develop. They use up this yolk sac and they can use it up pretty quickly. And it's very important for them at that time to be able to find zooplankton prey to eat. So what we do is we go out and we sample these fish in the spring when they've made their way to the surface, so during this hatching period, and we tow a net through the water close to the surface to capture these larval lake whitefish. We're also doing plankton samples at the same time, and this tells us how much food is available in the environment for these larval lake whitefish to feed on. The Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry has been doing these larval fish surveys, actually dating back to the 70s and 80s at the Fishing Island spawning shoal in the main basin of Lake Huron. So this is thought to be a historically very important spawning ground for lake whitefish. We've also been doing surveys, and this is with funding from Together with Gigoyak as well as COA. We're doing larval fish surveys in other parts of the lake as well. So we have our main basin survey at the Fishing Island spawning shoal. We're doing surveys at Tobermory and down the Bruce Peninsula. We also have work being done in southern Georgian Bay and in the North Channel. So with this work, we're looking at how many larval fish are being produced from these different spawning shoals in these different regions of the lake. We're looking at how much food is out there for these larval fish to eat. And we're looking at how much food is in the stomachs of these larval fish, and we're measuring the growth and survival of these larval fish. In order to better understand that early life and whether reduced food availability caused by the filter feeding effects of dry-sinded mussels has slowed the growth and reduced the survival of lake whitefish, leading to the declines in population abundance that we have seen.
Index netting is it's a tool, a way to look at the fish community on a whole. You're not targeting any particular species when you go out there and do this. You're trying to sample the entire fish community using, gill nets, but it's a variety of different mesh sizes to capture, different species at different age classes. So you get a, picture of what species are out there. You get an idea of, their growth, what age classes are out there, their abundances. And the beauty of this index netting program that we're doing here is one that's being done at multiple other locations throughout Lake Huron, so we're able to provide some context. Not only providing additional data to these programs, but it gives us some context of what we're seeing here versus what else is going on in the lake. This data we collect, it's not just targeted on lake whitefish, but we do lake whitefish are caught if they're in the area. And one of the ways this can help feed into that is you'll get the age class, a bit of a population idea for what's going on. For here, we really want to use this data. One of the key aspects of this program is to develop some Fathom 5, some monitoring indicators for Fathom 5's ecosystem. And so with all the data that's coming in, then we want to work with the project partners and the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation to see what metrics would be useful to have for Fathom 5, some meaningful things that everyone wants to know about.
Head over to Lake Taupo Holiday Resort for an instant holiday.
Ani Bojo, Ruth Duncan Nishnakaz, Nayashingamin Donjaba Wabajati Dodam. Hi, hello, my name is Ruth Duncan. I'm from Nayashingaming Reserve and I'm part of the Martin clan. My role on the Bamaj project is being a junior aquatics and fisheries specialist, and I'm working under Collective Environmental. Within this project, we've had the opportunity to use a piece of smart technology called an underwater ROV, or remote operated vehicle. And this underwater ROV gives us a chance to view the fish's shoal from a new perspective, almost from the fish's perspective. And using the ROV imagery, we've been able to create shoal assessment maps. When we use the ROV at the shoal sites, it dives in transects going northwest, south, and east. And then those transects are turned into data and shown visually on a map. And those maps highlight where invasive species can be found within the shoal or where substrate changes within the shoal. And using this piece of technology allows us to map what the bottom of these shoals look like, which we've never been able to do before, and gives us insight into what the fish's habitat and spawning areas look like. The use of these shoal maps along with the acoustic telemetry data can really help us better understand what's happening within these shoals and why the fish are acting the way they are. But it's important to note that it's not just the Western science and the data proving and guiding us along this journey. It is mostly the ecological knowledge that we gain from our fish harvesters and knowledge holders. Through interviews with the fish harvesters and knowledge holders of our community, it was clear to see that there was a big concern and interest in one particular shoal. So we decided that that shoal would be our focus of interest within this project. It's important to note that as researchers, we realize that this piece of technology is not proving the data, but more so broadening our understanding of lake whitefish's habitats and spawning areas.
I think it's great, first of all, to see our community reaching out and working with other organizations. Not only that, but having these research projects to be able to give back to our community and just kind of let them know what's going on, what we're doing to help our fishery, and what we're doing to help the people of our community. Like bringing in the two-eyed seeing, I think it's important to not only have Indigenous knowledge as a part, but also Western science, because a lot of people from our community need to realize that not only Indigenous knowledge is important, but also having the Western science perspective, because I think that when you bring those two together, it creates even more knowledge together.
I would just say that I'm really happy to have been a part of this process for the last 2 years. Again, I really didn't know much about Indigenous culture, even the Saugito-Dubwe Nation, even though I grew up in Wasaga Beach. And I'm just so happy to have been able to really open my mind to a different perspective on how we can implement the scientific method in a different way, and to be inclusive of all knowledges that we have, especially when we're looking at shared resources.
Recently, the commitment from the province to work with us on this Together with Gigoyak project has really changed a lot of people's minds in the way they view the province. It's going to take a long time to get back to a good place for all community members, but their commitment to work meaningfully and engage with us in a more ethical manner has really changed. There's a few key players on the province, and then here at Nawash and Saugeen that really initiated this work and built it from the ground up, and I think those people were really key in this collaboration. Prior to this project, I mean, my knowledge is a little incomplete, but I can't say there was any large-scale research collaborations with the province like this. The federal government as well, represented by Parks Canada. So we have these 3 different layers of government interacting, and I think that's fairly unique in some respects. But I think some important outcomes of this research one that just comes to mind right off the bat is the relationship building, you know. Rebuilding that bridge. The bridge was broken. We need to rebuild it. Whitefish are only one small component of our fisheries here in Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. And there's so much more that needs to be done. The dynamics between the ministry and the SON has changed quite markedly in the last few years, in my opinion.
Have we got all the answers? Probably not. But if we sat down and collaborated together a little bit, maybe we could find some reasonable solutions. And both Alex and Ryan have done very well to steer us in that right direction. What I am doing is trying to document as much as I can that I know of my lifetime. Plan on leaving that behind.
So that was our video that we wanted to share with you. Again, I don't like to preach, and I'd like to see if there's any questions from that video that it's raised for anybody in here. I am going to call up on Alex and Ryan to come up and answer, because like I said, they've been a big part of this. As leadership, we support them in what they're doing. We are going to actually turn this video over to our community members to have a copy of that to be able to share, so that they are carrying that knowledge forward, because most of our knowledge is orally passed down. And with my nephew and my niece in there, and others, cousins that were in there, I think it's important to share with our broader cousins from across the world that are Indigenous, to be able to show the collaboration that can be done as we move forward in a meaningful way and walking in parallel. So again, if there's any questions, I'd love to hear some for these two here anyways.
We'll also be holding a workshop later too, so depending on how timing works, if you have questions, you can ask us then.
I just want to acknowledge the detail of the artist and the color of the eyes and representing who those people are. The other thing is, one of the key messages for me was shared prosperity from fish, and how that prosperity through its wairua, through whenua and tangata, was especially noted by me anyway. The other thing is that the contribution that ngohi made, fish made, was whakapapa based, genealogically based, and I like that as well.
Oh, kia ora, thank you so much for that, sharing that with us. It really resonated. I just wanted to know, is any of the fishery allocated for customary purposes? And if so, what do those customary purposes look like? Here in Aotearoa, we also have a particular catch goes towards customary, like tangihanga and hui. And so I just wondered if the same applies to the fishery where you're from. Kia ora.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. That's a really good question. So we have a commercial fishing agreement that kind of covers what you're calling allocation. And what you're describing as customary is not, it's not part of the commercial fishery at all. So there, as much as people want to go out and fish for customary purposes, there's no regulations at all. That's the regulations are done, I would say, through traditional means, and not through any kind of agreement with the government or anything like that. So, and I think there was a question there about what those look like. And so, of course, people catch the fish to eat, but also there's certainly some of the more ceremonial kind of purposes. I think I mentioned yesterday about the fish being part of that totem system or the clan system, being part of the feasts, those kinds of things. So there is a lot of, I guess, what you're describing is kind of customary use. And thinking back to some of the interviews we did and talking with those that are out catching fish, and some of them describe that relationship with those fish as being one of like a family member. Like those fish aren't seen as, like they're seen as family members that you're kind of having that relationship with. So for me, I thought that was kind of a powerful kind of a message. And furthermore, thinking about what you're describing as customary use, and I was describing about like the government regulations, but there's also like internal kind of responsibilities to those fish. And we were just talking recently with one of the knowledge holders who was describing how before there were any treaties with settlers, Saunders had treaties with those fish, had a responsibility to those fish, and that treaty remains. So whatever treaties may have come after that, that original treaty remains with those fish beings. So that's kind of the relationship and reciprocity that continues on to this day.
Kia ora. My pātai is a bit kai related. I saw some images of the young spawning whitefish, and they look like the delicacy we have here in Aotearoa called whitebait and inanga. So my pātai is, do you use harvest the spawn, like the small, like the little babies? Because people eat them here in Aotearoa.
No, we don't eat those. We let those grow. Those are really small juveniles. We don't eat them. We wait until we use mesh over that's 4 3/4 or 5-inch mesh. So you're looking at roughly 2 to 3.5, maybe 4 pound fish before we harvest them. We really respect, as Ryan just said, we really respect nebe, which is water for us, and we respect those water beings as they go through their journey through the life. And even as one of the young ladies was talking on there, we had shared with the Ministry of Natural Resources how those fish moved, and we would follow them down the shorelines at certain times of the year, and they would say, well, how do you know it's the fish? Like, how do you know that they're doing this? And so as Ryan and Alex and Ruth and all the others have started putting in these tags in them and following them around the lake, it's actually showing them the movements at the times of year where our fishermen and elders are saying those fish are at and what they're eating. It's a really big step for us to be able to share that knowledge and be able to collaborate that and see that come to life in the computer imagery.
Kia ora. My question is, it looked from the video that the other partners in the program, the project, looked like they worked with you really well and quite easily. Were there any challenges working with either the government or Western science side of things, and how might you have addressed those, or if you did have any?
This project is probably 10 years in the making, if not more. To this day, we still disagree to agree, and that's where we've come up with that ethical wheel. We're not always going to agree. However, we are starting to see where there is change, and those I want to say the bridges almost are starting to be built to be able to see one another's side and points of view as we continue on this journey together and walking and trying to walk in parallel. Yeah.
Just one last thing. Yeah, there were a lot of challenges, and we're at a good place now, but it's important to recognize that while we are working with the province on this project, at the same time the province is fighting us in court for a title to our lake bed and a treaty claim. So it's confusing at times. So this branch, the fisheries branch, natural resource, we work with quite well, but then the Ontario courts are fighting us pretty hard, and creating barriers for us to access our land and title. So it's complex, to say the least.
O mai anō rā te Papaki ki te toko toru nei. I'm glad to see that that they have the same challenges that we have. Thank you. The video provides, firstly insight and gives an appreciation for, what you're doing over there. But I think also just giving us an appreciation for just the geographical lay of the land, and just how stunningly beautiful it is, and where you come from. A few years ago, I went up to Canada, not far from where these gentlemen are located, and went to Montreal. But prior to that, I had a Canadian friend that came over here, and so being from a river people, I thought, I'll take him to the river, and I says to him, our river here, the Whanganui River, it's the longest navigable river in New Zealand. And he's like, oh wow, how long is it? I said, I'm not too sure how long it is. I said, but the longest river in New Zealand is the Waikato River. It's about 460 kilometres. He said, oh wow. I said, hey, how big's the river where you come from? He said, oh gee, he said, well, look, he said, I think it's about 1,200 kilometres long. I said, oh okay then. I said, yeah, well, how wide is that river? I said, can you see the other, is it as wide as my river here? We stand on the side of the Whanganui River. He said, yeah, there's parts of my river you can't see the other side. And I thought, yeah, whatever, he's having me on. So, I went to old Google and found that, okay, at some points of the St. Lawrence River, so 100 kilometres wide. You know what I mean? The majority of it's between 40 and 60 kilometres wide, so it gives you an idea of the sheer size, of these beautiful areas of water that these gentlemen are, working with. So, it makes us realise that they don't have a Jonah Lomu over there, but they do have big rivers. Nō reira, kua tai te wā mo te paramanoa. We've arrived at morning tea. We're going to come back in here at 10:30. I'll give you a bit of a 5-minute call beforehand, and then we'll resume with our program. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.